Greetings, I'm the Tinkerer, and this is where I do my tinkering, or at least some of it. I'm making fire starters, and my little problem with starting fires, doing the campfire or anything like that, is that I can't get the tinder will catch very nicely, and then I can't get the kindling. I can't get the tinder going long enough to get the tinder to catch, or my tinder wasn't good enough, and it takes a little more burning time, a little more heat than I had enough tinder to get going. Almost like I need tinder, small kindling, big kindling fuel. I almost need to add one in the middle there. And I got to look around on the internet and saw what other people were doing. Got some ideas, wanted to try them. They worked pretty well, so I will share them with you. Remember, the whole idea here is to get something that will burn for several minutes, not just catch easily. It's easy to get some tinder that'll catch very easily. Kind of the tricky part is to getting the tinder to get the kindling going. And I said, I really need something that's going to burn pretty well for a minute or two. Even if the tinder is not so great, it'll still dry it out and get it going. Now, what makes really good tinder is dry grass. And what is sisal rope? Natural fiber rope of any kind is dry grass. Also notice that it's pretty porous. It's got lots of space in there. And the secret to a long burn time is wax. Safety tip about using wax. You want to use a double boiler. You can do this in the kitchen. If you use a double boiler, you want to use a pot, a pan of some kind, put water in it, and then put the pot that you're actually going to melt the wax into that. And keep your water at, just barely a boil. That way, there's no way the wax can get dangerously hot. Wax is perfectly safe stuff. You light a match to this, nothing will happen. It'll just melt a little bit. Wax only burns when it's vaporized, and that's what's going on in a candle. It has to vaporize for it to light, and you're actually burning vapors. So as long as this isn't vaporized, it's safe. If you overheat this, if you put the wax right directly in the pan, crank this up, turn your back on it, it could easily get hot enough for the wax to vaporize. And if it does that, it becomes extremely flammable and even explosive. So this is perfectly safe. You can do this in your kitchen with a double boiler. Get an old coffee can. Both of these implements I bought at my local thrift store. I think I paid $6 or $7 for this little electric cooking pan, and a couple dollars more for this very nice heavy aluminum little pot that works perfectly. So, there's an investment at $7 or $8 here. I got something I can use without annoying Mrs. Tinker. This is a good way to do it. There's no open flames, no overheating danger. This is the way to melt wax. Get yourself a coffee pot, put it in another pot with some water. And even then, I'll crank it up to get it going, full blast. But once the wax is mostly melted, back it off so it doesn't boil the water off. I just want to keep it in a nice hot bath. Now, the stuff we're using is plain old sisal rope. Any natural fiber rope will work. What is this? This is dry grass. This is just plain old dry grass that has been twisted together. And dry grass makes pretty good tinder. What it doesn't do is burn for very long. So the wax slows it down and it burns the wax vapors, and it'll take much longer to burn. It's quite simple. Once you have that completely melted, I'm going to use my cheapy tool here and just dip it in. Capillary action will draw it in, and it will be very nicely filled all the way through with paraffin. And you can see the bubbles come out. Another tip to help speed this process up is right over here, slightly out of camera range. I have a little desk fan. So I have some cool air circulating here to help speed up the solidifying of the wax. And now you can do that several times and build up a pretty good coat. A little hard to see with the white background. That's 7 or 8 dips. And what you could do is line up 6, 8, 10 of these, dip, put it down, let it cool, grab the next one, dip, keep going. By the time you get to the 10th one, the first one's ready to go back in. Doesn't take very long if you have a fan here to cool it quickly. Notice that stuff's almost like water, it's so thin. Do that as many times as you feel necessary. You can do that 7 or 8 times, or you can do what I'm going to do, which is now that I have these soaked, I'm going to let this cool, and when it starts to get thick again, I'm going to turn it off, and when the wax starts to thicken, you can then put one really good thick coat in pretty much one shot. We'll come back for that. Didn't have any candles laying around, so I went to Walmart, bought a couple of these big ones for a few dollars. These melt kind of slowly. So, on my first store trip, I also bought this cheap little cleaver. And I will chop up candle into flakes that will melt faster and easier. Now I did my first dips, so now I've taken it off the heat because I want this to cool a little bit. I'm going to take some of my flakes, drop them in there, and let them melt, and this will speed the entire process up. I could just wait until it cooled down. That works just fine. But dropping in some more flakes and letting the existing heat melt them works a little bit more rapidly. And the whole idea here is the first coat, the first dips were done with it very hot and very thin, so it soaks in all the way. Now I just want a coat on the outside. A thick coat on the outside happens easier if the wax is thicker. It's getting a little thicker than I want, so just put it back into my double boiling pan, warm it back up some, a low setting, just enough to make sure it stays liquid enough to work with. Kind of want to get the chunks out of it so it's fairly smooth. You got to stir it once in a while because it cools unevenly. And here's the final product. After I got the end lit, which took a little bit of effort, got it going, and notice it's very windy. It's working very nicely in spite of the fact that it's windy. And it's burned for about 10 minutes. That's about a 4-inch long piece. Lots of fire there. Should be enough to get your kindling going. I hope you find this useful. Keep tinkering.